Hello, okay, so today I'm going to talk about how you can create quite a contemporary looking watercolour using a fairly straightforward technique, and I'm going to use these two paintings to demonstrate this. This one on the left with the darker sky and the one on the right with the lighter sky. And as you can see, the sky and the land seem to sort of merge together, and that's what we're trying to achieve with this technique. And I happen to be using green and blue, but you can try out different colours. You just need to keep your colour palette very simple. Okay, so I'm using Ochre's cold press fine grain, and I've got a selection of brushes here. I probably might use some other ones, but if you just had a selection like this, that would be fine. Okay, so I'm using cobalt blue and then cobalt blue mixed with a yellow and a yellow ochre to make the green, and I've also got an indigo for any darker shades. Okay, so I've taped off an area on my paper about 6 inches by 6 inches, and I'm just going to start off by wetting the whole paper. Okay, so as you can see, the whole surface is wet, but it's not soaking wet. Okay, so I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to add a tiny bit of quite watered down cobalt blue just for a kind of sense of a sky at the top. And as I get lower down, I'm just adding plain water, and that just makes the sky fade to nothing. Okay, so I'm just going to add a band of cobalt blue in the lower third, and I am just using straight cobalt blue. I'm not mixing it with anything. If you want a more natural looking colour, you could try adding its complementary orange to make it a little bit more of a muted blue, but I'm just going to go for it and put the cobalt blue in a band along there, like that. Okay, so to make the top of this band of colour blend into the sky, I'm putting water on my brush, and that's going to pull that paint upwards, and that's really what I want, a sort of diffuse effect up into the sky. Okay, so if I move my paper a bit, you can see that it is still wet, so I am still working wet and wet, and I'm going to put a little bit more of the cobalt blue under that band. And if you tilt the paper, it will help the paint move in the direction you tilt the paper, and I do want my blue to sort of travel upwards, so that's what I'm doing here. And another tip that I think might be quite useful is if you've used tape, the water can collect at the edge, and it's important that that water doesn't start to run back into the painting, so it can help to just soak up some of that water with a dry brush. That's what I'm doing now. Okay, so the paper's still wet, and I'm just going to add a band of green along the bottom, and because it is wet, that will merge slightly with the blue above it. Okay, so at this point, while the paint's still wet, I'm going to get the end of my brush and I'm going to draw in some suggestions of hills here at the bottom. And because the paint's wet, that line will become darker. Now the paper's still wet, and I was having a think about what to do. I think with watercolour you need to respond to what's on the paper, and I decided to add another band of the cobalt blue, and as it is still wet, that will blend into the cobalt blue above, but because it's not soaking wet, that sort of shape will maintain itself. Okay, now it is looking quite dark, but I am happy with this, and it will dry a bit lighter. As you can see, it's still wet. Now I always keep these mats in my studio just to check for the composition. Just gives a clean edge, and I'm feeling quite happy with this, so I'll probably just let this dry now, and then I'll add the next layers once it's dry. Okay, so this is dry now, and I'm going to add some more layers on top. Now this green is quite vibrant, so I'm going to try and make a more muted green, and I'm going to add a bit of yellow ochre to my green just to tone it down a bit. That's the green I've got there, and I'm going to add some of that on top. And I'm going to use this quite thin down with water, and I'm just going to put the suggestion of a kind of hill or a mountain in the background. And there I'm using my brush to make these sort of vertical marks to just add a bit of texture and detail to the foreground. Okay, and I didn't cover up all my blue, some of it's showing through, and I think that really helps with this feeling that the land is kind of merging into the sky above, which gives this painting a kind of atmospheric, abstracted feel. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with a bit of a darker line more towards the bottom, and I added some of my indigo to get this darker green. And again, I'm just doing this line all the way across, but kind of varying the size of it. And again, I'm going to get my brush and I'm going to draw in these kind of vertical lines, which is going to help blend that colour and also just give a bit of texture in the foreground. Okay, so again, I'm just going to check my composition, and I think it's looking like it's getting done really. I'll just probably add a little bit of dark towards the bottom and maybe blend the top of that mountain a little bit. Okay, so that's what I'm doing there. I'm blending the top of that mountain with a more or less dry and very clean brush, and I'm adding a bit of dark to the bottom. But I'm pretty happy with this now, so it's finished and I'm just going to quickly take the tape off. Okay, so it's looking good and I'm happy with it. I think for the next one I'm going to try and tone down the cobalt blue, but I'll more or less do exactly the same process. So what I'll do is I will just put some captions and put the music up, just as a kind of recap of the whole process. Although I think the difference on this one is that I didn't put another band of the cobalt blue because I was trying to keep that a bit lighter. So I follow basically the same process, but I end up with quite a different looking painting because the tone of the colours are different, and obviously I'm responding to what's happening on the paper. So I think for me, with these types of watercolour paintings, it's good to have an idea about how you're going to execute them, but you never know exactly how they're going to turn out, which is part of the fun, really. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to put the music up now and I'll run through the rest of this quite quickly. Okay, so this is looking done now. It's got a good balance of tones, I think. So I'm just going to take the tape off and compare it with the one that I did before. Now I really hope that you've enjoyed this demonstration tutorial and you found it useful. And if you want to see similar videos in the future, then please subscribe to my channel. And if you like the video, hit like, and it would be fantastic if you leave a comment. It makes a big difference. And it's always really nice to hear from people who are watching. Okay, so here the two are. Now, yes, they are quite different, but they've got similarities as well, and I'm pretty happy with these. I use quite a lot of blue in my watercolours, and I think it goes really nicely with green, but I think I would like to try this technique again, but using different colours, maybe more kind of browny colours. Okay, so yeah, I hope you give this a go and let me know how you get on in the comments. See you in the next one. Okay, bye.